These are the 10 important and ambitious projects that have been presented by the 5 working groups for the 2021 work plan of the Global Partnership on AI. A responsible AI strategy for the environment. The combined fight against climate change and preservation of biodiversity represents one of the most pressing challenges humanity is facing. All GPAI member countries have put this at the top of their agenda and have taken strong commitments, especially through the Paris Agreement signed in 2015. Accordingly, this project aims to develop a global responsible AI adoption strategy for climate action and biodiversity preservation. The short-term objective of this project is to prepare an action-oriented roadmap on the intersections between responsible AI and climate action to be disseminated ahead of the COP26 in Glasgow. The Responsible AI Working Group will also coordinate with other GPAI working groups to bring relevant climate action and biodiversity preservation-related use cases in their work. For 2022 and beyond, the Responsible AI Working Group will aim to establish other cooperation channels and further develop its responsible AI adoption strategy. Responsible AI for social media governance. While the social media platform's influence on the information flows in society is expanding, there are growing concerns about the level of misuse, which can be harmful by propagating disinformation, extremism, violence, and many forms of harassment and abuse. There is also a growing consensus that governments should review the effectiveness of current regulations on the influence of social media platforms on the dynamics of public discourse, so these processes are undertaken democratically and systematically, rather than solely by private companies. The objective of this project is to identify a set of guidelines and techniques that governments could adopt to safely ask a set of agreed questions and measurements about the effects of social media recommender systems without infringing people's rights to privacy, freedom of expression, and fair democratic processes, and without infringing companies' intellectual property. The main longer-term outcomes of the project are formal agreement with the selected social media platform and the government of the selected country for implementation of the fact-finding exercise. A fact-finding exercise that is actually conducted and delivers proposals to inform governments about specific mechanisms that could operate within the companies that are studied. AI for public domain drug discovery. Current and future needs of public health, such as those concerning infectious diseases and pandemics, are often unmet by current drug discovery technologies and ecosystems due to rising costs and market failures. At the same time, the use of AI is a huge opportunity to speed up and reduce those costs, but it would be much more likely to succeed and would require less government funds in an open science and data-sharing governance framework. The objective of this project is to develop a set of recommendations for member countries and the international community in general to create an enabling international environment for open AI research towards the development of new drugs or the repurposing of existing ones to address public health challenges. The first step towards this objective will be to create a set of recommendations synthesized from interviewing and collecting feedback from a mix of relevant experts from different fields, such as AI, health, public policy, and IP, to be published. AI-powered immediate response to pandemics. In 2020, an exploratory report was prepared for the AI and Pandemic Response Subgroup containing a catalog of AI initiatives developed and used in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. In light of the pandemic further developing and changing over the last year and into 2021, these initiatives need to be re-evaluated, including scalability and considerations of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on developing countries as the developed world slowly reopens following lockdowns and vaccination campaigns. This project aims to directly support impactful and practical AI initiatives to help in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The short-term outputs of the project are to create and update the COVID-19 AI Initiatives Catalog to transform it into a living repository of AI initiatives for pandemic response. AI at Work Observation Platform. In 2020, the Future of Work Working Group focused its efforts on analyzing real AI use cases at the workplace. It developed a questionnaire that examines the process of AI systems social integration in companies. A catalog of more than 80 real use cases was collected from nearly 10 countries. First analyses were published in the report of the 2020 Montreal Summit. This project would further improve the use case collection process with a hybrid approach: an online survey followed by a short interview to get more in-depth responses. Outputs of the project are setting up a students' community as a team of interviewers comprised of student researchers together with their professors, backed by an expert from the working group across various GPAI members. Redefining the questionnaire by integrating questions from the committees on training and human-machine collaboration. Identifying the use case scenarios of the catalog and designing a coherent solution. Specifying the end-user platform of the AI Observatory. By the second quarter of 2022, the working group is planning to develop the proof of concept of the AI Observatory in an end-to-end process, and scale up the observatory to a digital platform. Fair work for AI. A lot of work and studies have been done on fair working conditions around AI. The pathway from high-level principles to enforceable regulation around the impact of AI on working conditions has not been clearly defined. The focus on ethics can even be used as a way of getting around regulation, especially when technology companies opt for voluntary codes of practice that they have shaped themselves. Currently, all existing AI ethics guidelines are non-binding. The project's aim is to determine AI best practices with regard to working conditions. This will entail a set of AI fair work principles and operationalizable processes through which they can be applied, measured, and evaluated in any workplace. The short-term outputs of the project are a review and synthesis of existing AI principles, policies, and benchmarks, a publicly shared working document of principles and processes that balance meaningful standards of fair work with implementability. The main longer-term outcomes of the project are a report on AI fair work principles and processes released in 4 languages for maximum global impact, a virtual launch event that connects the release to key actors in industry, the labor movement, and government. Case studies of the impact of the adoption of the principles by 5 organizations in 2022. Broad adoption of AI by SMEs. Small-medium enterprises, nonprofit organizations, and government-funded institutions typically employ 80% of a country's workforce. However, these organizations usually have low AI maturity, as they often lack the resources, skills, data, or IT infrastructure to develop and adopt AI solutions. These organizations must be supported now to adopt AI so that they can continue to deliver their missions and objectives and that their workforce will continue to be economically relevant. The aim of the project is to create a bank of shareable resources web portal to support the following initiatives: outreach materials and activities to engage AI-unaware and AI-aware enterprises, a catalog of AI solutions by industry verticals and functions, a service to match AI-unaware and AI-aware consumers to AI solution providers based on the consumer's industry verticals and business activities. The short-term objectives of this project are: create a template of the portal and shared resources and activities to engage organizations. This template will be made available to governments to adapt to their reality. A curated catalog of solutions by industry verticals and functions. A matching service to recommend AI solution providers to organizations. By the end of 2022, this project aims to conduct field tests of the portal on existing initiatives from fellow GPAI members and develop an AI readiness index for AI consumers and a quality assessment for AI solution providers that could be listed on the portal. Protecting AI innovation, intellectual property. Both the development and use of AI technologies have the potential to be hindered by several identified challenges, such as how to efficiently protect investment through intellectual property (IP) protection. How can data be protected? What kind of intellectual property rights will be created? And how will ownership of such IP be organized? In meeting such challenges, a business must understand how IP rights are handled in different situations and across different jurisdictions and set an IP management strategy. The main objective of the project is to achieve a deeper understanding of the challenges that organizations face in the area of IP as it relates to AI. The short-term objectives are to publish the first version of the GPAI IP Primer and distribute it to GPAI members, and to conduct 6 case studies on how businesses are handling IP risks regarding AI-related innovations and commercialization. Some of the long-term objectives for this project are to incorporate implications of EU Data Governance Act, Digital Market Act, Database, and Machine Directive. To update the GPAI IP Primer based on the case studies and disseminate it to a wider audience. Publish a GPAI IP expert document. Explore a pattern of clauses of framework data access, sharing, and flows for implementing it to international trade agreements. And produce key recommendations for harmonization of patent rules. Enabling data sharing for social benefit through data trusts. Effective data stewardship is essential for a variety of public policy goals and for realizing the wider economic value of data. Data trusts are a promising tool to empower individuals and communities. However, important challenges must be addressed to establish them. This project will support the creation of real-world data trusts that enable data sharing for social benefit. It will support new institutions that empower individuals and communities to enact their data rights, ensuring that data sharing activities reflect the diverse interests of all in society. The short-term outputs of the project include a GPAI consensus statement on tenets of a data trust, setting out the role of these data institutions and the principles or core attributes that inform their ways of working. An initial survey of existing data institutions, exploring how different efforts have implemented core features of a data trust. A scoping review of current legal frameworks for the development of data trusts across jurisdictions, identifying areas of uncertainty or need. Create a scoped pilot data trust that could be implemented through a future partnership or from working group collaborations. Advancing research and practice on data justice. This project aims to fill a gap in data justice research and practice that provides a frame to help practitioners and users to move beyond understanding data governance narrowly as a compliance matter of individualized privacy or ethical design. The project seeks to include considerations of equity and justice in terms of access to and visibility and representation in data used in the development of AI/ML systems. The project aims to provide an annotated bibliography and critical review of the literature and the development of preliminary guides that will document key questions that our target audiences should be asking based on an assessment of the critical review of the literature and practice. The short-term outputs of the project would include the state-of-the-art research assessment presented as an ongoing research agenda, the preliminary guidance for developer communities, policymakers, and communities, and individuals marginalized by AI/ML systems. Pilot partners announced to test, refine, and validate guidance in 2022. This is only a brief summary of the first 10 projects undertaken by the Global Partnership on AI. If you're interested in learning more about these projects and GPAI, or to partner with us, visit our website at gpai.ai.